I sensed that something was wrong the moment I walked in through my front door. After 2 weeks of exotic beaches and fruity cocktails in Bali, coming home was supposed to be like a big hug. Instead, I stood in the entryway, looking at the dirty footprints scanning across my otherwise immaculate hardwood floors. Someone had come through my house. I dropped my suitcase and followed the dirty trail through the living room, noticing my coffee table had been pushed approximately 6 inches from its usual position. Nothing was wrong, but everything felt intruded upon. That's when I saw it, a yellow sticky note taped onto my fridge door. Regular checkup, nothing to be worried about. It was signed Karen Williams, HOA president, with a smiley face drawn beside her name. My blood chilled. What regular checkup could possibly justify someone breaking into my home while I was away? I'd taken every precaution when leaving for vacation, set timers for lights to come on and off at random hours, disrupted my mail delivery, even requested my neighbor Tom to keep an eye on the property. That's what responsible homeowners do in our community. Pinewood Estates was a gated community with manicured lawns and strict homeowners association rules. Rules I followed religiously. The monthly fees were steep, but they allegedly guaranteed security and property value protection. Never in my wildest dreams did I imagine the HOA president would misuse her position to come into my home uninvited. I pulled out my phone and phoned Tom immediately. "Hey, did you notice anyone going into my home while I was out?" I asked, attempting to remain calm. "No," he replied unsurely. "But I did notice Karen's car sitting in front of your home a couple of days ago. I figured she was dropping off some neighborhood publication or something." My home security system had cameras both in front and back doors. I easily pulled up the application on my phone and scrolled through the video recording. There she was, Karen Williams, in her notorious pastel-colored pantsuit, approaching my front door at 2:17 p.m. last Tuesday. She weaved around furtively before drawing out what appeared to be a key, my key. She opened my door and entered for nearly 40 minutes. The video captured her examining my living room, tracing her finger down shelves, searching for dust, rummaging through a pile of unread mail I'd left on the counter, and even opening my fridge. She appeared to be making notes on a clipboard. When she finally departed, she had that smug, self-satisfied smile she always wore at HOA meetings when denying someone's request to paint their fence a non-regulation color. I was enraged. I drove directly to Karen's house, which wasn't difficult to locate. It was the one with the immaculately trimmed hedges and a front yard sign that stated HOA president, as though it were an elected political position. Karen opened the door with that professional smile of hers, but faltered when she saw the look on my face. "Oh, you're back from your break. How was it?" she asked pleasantly, forgetting that she'd breached my home. "Why were you in my home, Karen?" I asked directly. She didn't even have the decency to look embarrassed. It was simply a routine. "Well, check," she explained with a dismissive wave of her hand. "We do them for all residents who are away on extended trips. It's for your safety." Really, her patronizing tone made my skin crawl. "Where in the HOA bylaws does it specifically mention these wellness checks?" I asked. Karen's smile tightened. "It's an unwritten policy. As president, I have some discretion to maintain the community standards up. Something didn't compute. I'd read the HOA agreement closely before purchasing my home. I'm an attorney after all. There was nothing about entering houses without permission, other than in the event of emergencies, like water leaks or fires. I made up my mind to probe a bit further. In the space of a few days, I spoke with other homeowners within the area. What I discovered was startling. Several residents admitted they'd returned from holiday to find things ever so slightly rearranged within their homes, but ascribed it to their own forgetfulness. There were other folks who had noticed Karen driving past houses when owners were away, but were afraid to confront her. Martin at 3 doors down finally owned up. "She burgled my house when I was in hospital last year. Said she needed to check to see if I was doing anything illegal while I was away. What am I supposed to do? She's threatened to catch individuals for having their trash cans out 10 minutes too long." I collected all the evidence, my security footage testimony from neighbors, a copy of the HOA bylaws highlighting the absence of any wellness check provision, and records of the lockbox in which emergency keys were stored, which was only to be opened in legitimate emergencies. I also discovered Karen had been utilizing these unauthorized accesses to hoard ammunition on homeowners she personally disliked. The day before the monthly HOA meeting, I reported for breaking and entering, then arranged my presentation before the board. The community center was packed that Thursday evening. Karen sat at the center of the board table, gavel in hand, looking particularly self-satisfied with herself as she brought the meeting to order. When new business came along, I rose to my feet. I'd like to address a very serious security concern regarding unauthorized entry into homes of residents, I said softly. Karen's head snapped up, her eyes narrowing. I plugged my laptop into the projector and projected the security tape of her entering my home. The room went quiet. What you are witnessing is our HOA president using an emergency lockbox key to enter my house without permission. While I was away on vacation, I continued. This is not only a breach of HOA bylaws, but state law. Karen's face had grown an alarming shade of red. She banged her gavel several times. This is out of order. These wellness checks are for community protection. That's when I played testimony from other homeowners who'd experienced similar invasions. The other board members looked increasingly uncomfortable. There is no wellness check provision in our bylaws, I stated firmly. What there is, however, is a clear statement that emergency keys are only to be used in cases of water leaks, fires, or other emergencies that could damage property. I then gestured toward the back of the room where 2 police officers had crept in. Unnoticed, Karen noticed them and leapt up so quickly her chair fell over. This is scandalous, she spluttered. I was maintaining the integrity of our community. People leave windows open. They switch off appliances too late. They might have prohibited things that interrupt our covenants. Her voice had reached a hysterical level that made some people voyeurs. So you admit to breaking into houses uninvited to look for violations? I asked quietly. The room remained in shocked silence while Karen attempted to rationalize her behavior. Someone has to uphold standards around here. Do you know what would happen if I didn't enforce the rules? Property values would plummet. Weed of people painting their houses purple and putting up those tacky flamingo lawn ornaments. She was in full meltdown mode now, her carefully cultivated image of authority crumbling with every word. And you, she pointed at me accusingly. Your garbage can was visible from the street last month, and I'd seen your shutters weren't up to par with the color scheme, which was authorized. The officers stepped forward as Karen let loose Mrs. Williams. One of them said brusquely, "We have to take you with us. You're under arrest for breaking and entering, unauthorized entry, and misconduct in authority." Karen's face changed from anger to horror as the policeman read her Miranda rights. This is absurdity, she shouted as they marched her out the door. I'm the HOA president. I have keys to all your homes. Who's going to enforce the rules now? The entire room stood there in shock as Karen, the woman who had been issuing fines to people for having grass half an inch too tall, was led away in handcuffs, still insisting she was simply doing her job. One of the board members still seated there cleared his throat awkwardly. I believe we should have an emergency election for a new president, he recommended. The motion carried by a unanimous vote. 3 months later, Karen's case came before court. The judge was quite unsympathetic towards her allegations that HOA authorities somehow took precedence over common property rights and privacy statutes. She was sentenced to 18 months behind bars for various counts of breaking and entering, in addition to trespass charges from more than a dozen homeowners who surfaced after her arrest. She was also sentenced to pay $25,000 in fines and restitution to the homes whose owners stepped forward after her arrest. When the sentence was proclaimed, Karen's immaculately maintained front finally collapsed entirely. But who will ensure everyone does things by the book? She wailed as she was escorted out of the courtroom. Who will guard our property values now?